Hey y'all, this is Courtney with Just Nurse Court, and today is going to be a little bit of a different video. So I'm going to be putting away the potatoes that I canned a few days ago, and then we are going to be processing my green beans today, and my plan is to make some dilly beans. So I thought maybe while I was doing that, I would just throw the camera up there and we would kind of film a little bit, and hopefully I can put together some little video of the whole process of me doing my dilly beans. So first off, I got to clean my counter off. So I started to write down on my lids the date and what this was. And so I'm going to finish that up, and then I've got to find a place to put my potatoes, and then we will jump into processing my dilly beans. Okay, so I got my potatoes put away, and I don't know where I'm going to put my green beans when I get them done, but I'm going to have to find room for all my stuff. So my green beans, I picked them Monday evening, and today's Thursday morning, and I knew that I had to get to them really quickly, as fast as I could anyway. And I just put them in the, basically in, I brought them in, put them into bowls, and then threw them into the refrigerator. I didn't wash them, didn't do anything. Tried to keep them as dry. They're starting to get a little bit wet just sitting in the fridge. But I knew I needed to get to these before these go bad. So my plan is to do dilly beans today, like I mentioned. And so the dilly bean recipe that I have actually comes from my sister's husband, mother. So it's from an in-law, but she has a dilly bean recipe that she has used, and it obviously uses green beans, peppers, and garlic, plus your vinegars and dill and all that kind of stuff. So I have all my ingredients set aside, ready to go, but I need to kind of figure out how many beans I have roughly. So what I'm going to do first off is I'm going to move my jars over here. And I know that I'm working in my sink, so I'm kind of got my back to y'all, so I'm sorry about that. But what I'm going to do is kind of count these beans as I'm putting them in the sink for washing, and then we're going to just wash them up really good, and then I've never used this organic veggie wash before, but I think that I will do that, use it, and wash these things up. So I usually just use like a salt water or vinegar water or something like that to wash my veggies in, but I thought maybe I would try this because I had bought this for some fruit that I'm getting from the store. And so I thought, well, why not just try washing my green beans in it? So it has alcohol, sunflower oil, glycerin, lemon oil, coconut oil, potassium hydroxide, and citric acid. The potassium hydroxide is a processing agent that turns oils into soap, and it's not present in the finished product, it says. So there we go. Anyway, so I might try this. I may not. I may just use a little bit of salt water, actually, because I don't know. I've never tried it yet. Now I'm like, I don't know. I mean, I know my stuff is good. I think I'll just save that for stuff that I get from the store. But my stuff's good. I try to, garden organically, and so I don't think there's much spray on my beans. Um, so the only thing that I sprayed stuff with was some spinosad, and that was like several weeks ago before the beans were even developed. So I'm not concerned about it, but I think I will just do a little wash with some salt water and get these puppies ready to go. So I'm just going to put them in some cold water and they're pretty clean actually. So I'm just going to kind of count them as I put them in here to give me a rough count so that I kind of know how many jars that I need to get ready. So whenever I was counting these beans, I counted the first bowl and there was around 225 beans in there. So I'm going to assume that I've got around 500 beans. I would not have guessed that. So I'm going to go ahead and just clean up all 12 of those, get all those jars ready, because if there truly is about 500, then I just like to have enough jars ready to where I'm not having to like scramble and go get more jars ready at the last minute. So I'm going to go ahead and get those 12 jars ready. I'm going to let these things soak, and then I will be back whenever we are getting closer to being ready to start the process. All right, so I got my jars washed, got my beans washed, and we are ready for the next step in this process, which is to trim the beans. So I always trim the ends off, obviously. I don't trim the little bottom part of it. I just trim the stem end off of my beans. And especially for dilly beans, because it doesn't matter. Like some people will take the little pieces off at the end if they're doing like snap beans just to make them look prettier. But in this case, we're going to be doing dilly beans, which is going to be leaving the bean whole. And so I am not going to bother taking that end off. So that'll save me one step. What I do like to do is grab a wide mouth jar and roughly, like I will kind of decide about how big of a trim that I need to do on the bean. Let's see if that one, yeah, that should fit in there pretty good. So this is kind of going to be my guiding piece. So I'm just going to put my little trimmings there. But basically I want to kind of try to keep them roughly about the same size, and then that way that will, let's just see, make sure we're doing okay. Yeah, okay. So those will kind of be the size of my beans to use. And then I'm just gonna put several of them up here and then get to trimming, and then we'll get to stuffing the beans. So what I decided to do was kind of count out roughly 50 beans, and then that way we could do kind of, I could pack one jar together and kind of show you the process, and then I will finish up and do all the jars. So we'll kind of show you. So I'm trimming the beans, and then we will pack the jar. The only thing we won't do is put the pickling liquid on it until the very end, but I'll kind of show you the process on packing the jar, and then I will do all my jars, and then we will show you how to do the pickling liquid and add that to the jars and the kind of the final steps. If I continue to video this whole process, this would be a very long video, so we can't do that. So we are going to just trim these up and get ready for the next step. Okay, so I have roughly my 50 beans. So I'm going to get all my other stuff here, just so I can show you all the ingredients. So we need apple cider vinegar, and I use whole dill seed. You can use dill seed, you can do dill weed. I just prefer the seed because the dill weed kind of just gets all out throughout the jar. The dill seed is not quite as bad. You can also use whole dill heads if you choose to do that. This is just some extra dill seed from last year that I'm going to use. And then the recipe that I have calls for Hungarian hot wax peppers. I'm growing some Hungarian hot wax peppers, but right now all I have is jalapenos that I bought from the store. So I gotta rinse that one off. And that way it will be ready for use. But I will get all these cleaned up, and I should actually you know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna just run a little bit of cold water and put some veggie wash in the sink and then wash the peppers because they haven't been washed real thoroughly. So we're gonna do that real quick. And that way I will just be one step closer. And so it doesn't take any other vegetable besides just a pepper and the bean and then garlic. I don't know how many of the jalapenos I need, so I just bought several. I bought like 10 at the store because I wasn't sure how many jars I would need. So I will get these cleaned up and washed, and then I may not need them all, so I may just cut them up and freeze them. And just kind of, because if I do more dilly beans, I'll probably just quarter them. And then that way, that's generally what I was doing, was about a half to a quarter of a pepper, depending on the size. And that's how much I would put in the jar. Alright, so we'll get these washed up and rinsed, and then we'll be ready to go. Okay, so now that my peppers are ready to go, I also got garlic from the store. I went to the store the other day and all they had was the elephant garlic, which is fine. I was just expecting to get a smaller thing of garlic, and when all they had was elephant garlic, that's what I had to get. And typically I thought they had like smaller garlic, so and my garlic is still curing, or we could maybe have tried some of it, but okay, so definitely, I do not need this big of a clove for sure. So I will probably end up cutting these elephant garlics down a little bit and doing like half of an elephant garlic. Because those are awfully big pieces, and I don't think we need the whole thing in there, but we can do a half of one. So, and we can technically even probably cut those in half. I think that's what we'll do, because the recipe that I have, so I printed it off, it calls for 2 cloves of garlic. I think what I'll do is set it right up there so I have quick access to it. So it calls for 2 cloves of garlic per thing. So we're just going to put a quarter of this elephant garlic in there. So I'm just going to stick that in the bottom of the jar. And then it calls for 1.5 teaspoons of dill seed. So this is a half a teaspoon. And then I'm going to put just a little bit more because that was not quite a full teaspoon. Okay. And then it calls for a pepper. And it just says half of a Hungarian wax. So what I'm going to do is just do jalapeno. And I think what I'm going to do is probably take the seeds out of this mostly. If you wanted it spicier, a spicier dill, then you could obviously leave the seeds in. But I think I will mostly take the seeds out. And yes, I'm doing this with my bare hands. So I'm going to not want to touch anything. So you can do half of a pepper, and then sometimes what I would do is just to make the jar a little bit easier to pack, I would end up putting like the peppers in quarters just to make it a little easier. Okay, so now we have all this stuff. So it needs the green beans and then the canning salt, the apple cider and the water. That is my pickling liquid, so I do that separate. And then so I put just the garlic cloves, the dill, and the pepper plus the green beans in here. So then we try to pack in roughly 50 green beans. And this is the tricky part. And sometimes I have found it's easier to lay it on its side. When trying to stuff this full. So you basically just want to stuff the jar as full as you can of green beans, and that is approximately 50 beans per jar. Probably will have to split that up into 2 batches. And then you'll have stuff sticking out, and then that's whenever that pepper, I like to get them kind of up on their sides. And with those big honking garlic cloves, because that's all I had, that's going to take up a little more room too. But this is the process. And then you just keep stuffing, because they will, in the process, the beans will kind of shrink up a little bit. And so that's why you try to stuff the jars with as many beans as possible. So sometimes you just have to literally do one at a time and try to fill in as best you can. And that garlic in the bottom there is kind of pushing everything up. So I may have to end up trimming a little bit off. We'll see. So I got 2 more beans to fit in here. It's like Tetris. It's like a puzzle, trying to get it all in there. Oh, I put that bean in there upside down. Of course I did. So anyway, that's the process. So basically, I'll try to stuff those down just a little bit more. But that is the filling of the jar process. So I'm going to go through here and get all my jars filled. And then we will come back whenever we are ready to do the pickling process. Okay, so I think we are ready to now do our pickling liquid. So I was able to stuff 10 jars full of the dilly beans and peppers and garlic. And so the next step is to create the pickling liquid. And so the recipe that I calls for is enough pickling liquid for 4 jars. So I basically had to double it and then do like 2.5 times basically. So what I figured that out to be is I'm going to need, so the recipe for 4 jars calls for, and this is 4 pints, calls for 2.5 cups of water, 2.5 cups of apple cider vinegar, and then a quarter cup of salt. So I have my salts all already measured, and then I got my water measured. So I'm doing like 6.25 cups of water, and then I will add in the vinegar and the salt. So we're going to go ahead and get this onto the stove so it can be cooking. So you basically just bring it up to just a boil just to get the salt to dissolve is really all that you have to do on this pickling liquid. And then you can pull it right off and start putting it into your jars. So let me see. I haven't opened up this jar of vinegar yet. Okay. Is it going to be difficult? Apparently. Okay. Y'all, I'm going to have to get something to get this open. Okay. I'm back. So I had to just honestly use my teeth, but I didn't want to do that on camera. So now we are going to pour in our slightly over 6 cups of vinegar. Okay, so that was like almost half of that, not quite. And add that in. Okay. And I will set my vinegar off to the side because I don't want it to melt. And then we will turn that on and then add in the salt. And then I will just stir this and just kind of stir it constantly till it just comes to a boil, just to make sure that we know that the salt is good and dissolved. And this may take just a little bit. You can buy pre-made pickling liquids or pre-made mixtures at the store, or you can just make your own. Okay, so I thought I had this filming while I was bringing this up to a boil, but I'm not sure what happened, but I don't think that I really did have. So I'm just going to kind of slide this little funnel on, and basically what I'm just going to do is fill each of these jars. So this was my pickling liquid mixture, and I am just pouring it in the jars and filling it up to like a 1-inch headspace. So I will have to kind of go back in and readjust my beans because some of them are sticking up. Okay, so I am going to get a paper towel and wipe around the rim of these just to make sure that they are okay. It helps me kind of feel and then just get anything off of the rims that would maybe cause it not to seal. Since I am using this is a vinegar and salt um, and water mixture, a lot of times what I do is I wipe the rim of my jars with vinegar um, and a paper towel just to make sure, just to clean it off, to make sure that there's nothing on there to prevent the sealing. But because this is a vinegar mixture, I'm not doing that. I'm just using, just kind of a dry paper towel and just going over it just to make sure. But especially if you're doing any kind of meat or anything that's got like butter or anything like that, which typically like butter is kind of a rebel candy thing, but for meat, for specifically anything that has got a little bit of grease to it, I always using the vinegar is a trick to help keep the jar rims clean and help them to seal better. I think I'm going to have to cut that little bean off because he's not wanting to go down like he should. Okay. And then I take my jar lids and put them on. Oops. And then we take our rings and we just put this down fingertip tight. Okay. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to put these in my water bath canner. And because they are a acidic mixture because of the vinegar, then you can safely water bath can these kinds of things. Okay, so now I am going to get my water bath canner, and I may have to adjust the camera again. Okay, and I have some water in my canner, but now I'm just going to bring the jars over, and I will probably have to put more water in it. I just wasn't sure how full it needed to be once I get all the jars in. And I'm hoping, I don't know that I can fit all 10 jars in here. I'm thinking that I'm not gonna do it. I thought so. I need to add a little bit more water in there. What I'm gonna do, because I have 3 jars left, I am going to just put them in a kettle. I have a taller kettle. And so this is just a regular kettle. And then I bought these at Walmart actually. And you can put them in the bottom of it. And then that just helps to prevent the can from rattling the bottom of the jar and or the bottom of the kettle and kind of prevent any leaking. So this is going to be pretty tight fit, but I think it will work. Okay, so I have filled both kettles with water, and the water is covering the jars. And I just remembered I want to put a little bit of vinegar in my kettle. So I put a little bit of vinegar in the water whenever I can, when I do water bath or pressure canning, because it will help to keep the jars clean and not get a film built up on them. So now we'll put the lids on and we will bring these puppies up to a boil, and then they have got to boil for 10 minutes at my location, my pressure. Okay, so turn them both on. Okay, so now we wait for them to come to a boil, and then we will boil them for 10 minutes. And then once they're done boiling for 10 minutes, then I turn the heat off and I let them set for 3, 4, 5 minutes. And then I will take them out and I will show you that process next. Okay, so these are done. They have been boiled for 10 minutes, and then they're just sitting while these finish up. And these actually just did. The timer went off for the 10-minute. So I turned the burner off, and I am just going to remove the lid. And then that way I will finish letting that cool on down. It's still boiling at the moment, but I will finish letting that one cool on down and stop boiling, and then we will take these out of the water and we will set them over on the countertop. These here I probably actually can go ahead and take out because they've been sitting there for a few minutes. So I have my handy dandy little grabber, and then I always transfer mine over to my countertop over here, and because of that, I don't want the hot water dripping all over the floor. I just get a towel and put that in my hand, and then just transfer it right on over. And then these will start to seal as they cool down. Right, and the water is no longer boiling in here. I think I will let it just set for a couple minutes longer, and then we will take these out. Okay, so these have been sitting for a few minutes, and I am going to go ahead and take them out. So kind of why we do kind of got sidetracked by my garlic in there. Because my garlic kind of turns colors. I cut it up and I didn't put in whole cloves, and the garlic is kind of turned a little bit of a funky color. So I don't know, I'm gonna have to look that up, and it could be just the vinegar that has done it. I'm gonna have to check that out. Normally I put just whole garlic cloves and I don't cut them up, but these were the elephant garlic and they were big old chunks, and so I thought, well, I'll just cut them up. So guess we will see. But anyway, what I started to say is why you want to take your jars not right out of the hot boiling water is they can do what they call siphoning, which is where the liquid comes out under the rim of the seal. And so we try to prevent that by letting them sit just a little bit longer after the water has stopped boiling to hopefully prevent any siphoning. And these did not siphon. So perfect. Okay. I'm definitely going to have to check out the garlic thing, because that is very weird, because it almost looks like it kind of turned it a green color. And I have never seen that before. I mean, I'm going to have to look into that. There was nothing wrong with it. The garlic smelled just fine, but it definitely kind of gave it a funny looking color. So I am going to have to definitely do some research on that and find out if that happens sometimes. Okay, guys. So that pretty much concludes my little tutorial on how to do your own dilly beans. And so I got 10 pints of dilly beans, and I had, like I said, right around, I didn't completely count them exactly, but it would have been right around 250. And typically, 500 beans, sorry, because it was about 250 in the one bowl. And so it was roughly double that. So I just kind of doubled it in my head. So I had roughly about 500 green beans, and so that ended up with 10 pints of dilly beans. So anyway, that's the process. So if you guys are interested in learning how to water bath can, definitely check out other videos. This is my first preserving the harvest video that I have done, and so I don't have any other canning videos out there, but there's a lot of YouTube channels that do. You can get like the Ball Canning book. It's a great resource. There's all kinds of stuff online. There's different websites that you can go to as far as like learning the correct like USDA approved canning methods and stuff like that. So anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed this little tutorial. I know it's kind of a little bit of a different video, and it'll kind of be pieced together because I had to do so many different steps. So we will get it put together for you guys and get it out there so you can see how I processed my green beans and how I made dilly beans. So I hope you guys have a great rest of your day, and I will see you soon in the next one. Bye, friends. I thought I would show you guys the finished green bean or dilly bean canning, and all the jars have sealed, and you can tell it because the little buttons all pop down the middle, and then whenever you run your hand over them, they are nice and smooth. So I will let these sit here for 24 hours at least. I probably won't do anything with them until Friday night, because today was Thursday, so either Friday night when I get home from work or Saturday morning. And then I will take the rings off of everything and write the date and what they are. So, and by the way, I wanted to let you guys know that I went ahead and looked up the whole garlic issue, and they said that is completely normal, that it will turn a green color, and it's due to the reaction with the vinegar and the sulfur in the garlic, and it's completely normal, and it is completely edible. So anyway, I just wanted to update you guys on that. So I'm going to throw this on the end of the video. So I hope you guys have a wonderful one. See you next time.